بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So today we'll talk about a thing which is called Muwakha, as in companionships, and Treaties of Medina, and a bonus feature on Hijri calendar. Now, recapping from our last class, was a week before the term holidays began. We spoke about an incident of Marbad. Guys, please mute everyone. So, someone has it quite loud, so I can literally listen to myself. So everyone, please mute. Right. We talked about Quba, as in the Prophet ﷺ first stayed in Quba, which is the first masjid in Islam that was built by the Prophet himself. Name the masjid. Come on, guys. The hint is like literally in front of. No, bhai. The hint is in front of you. Masjid al-Haram was built by Hazrat Adam alayhi salam, not by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Isn't it the one where one of the things they would like stand at the top of the tower and they would do azan?
Nope. The name is in front of you guys. Can you see my screen? It was Masjid al-Quba. Goldfish memory, isn't it? Last class we spoke about the Prophet stayed where before he entered Medina? He stayed in Quba. And in Quba, he built the masjid himself with a few Sahaba. And that is the first masjid in Islam that was actually built by the Prophet himself. Masjid al-Nabawi Sallallahu is the second masjid in Islam. But the first one is Masjid al-Quba. This is why we all need to always revise the presentation. This is why this is sent as well, isn't it? Anyways, so Masjid al-Quba was the first masjid in Islam that was built, and it was built by the Prophet himself. Then we also talked about myth of this Nasheed. I'm not going to go over it. The place where the Masjid Nabawi Sallallahu is built was owned by Sohail and Sahal, these two orphan children. So we basically talked about these things. Now, because we spoke about such an important event, which is Hijri or Hijra, as in emigration, it is only pertinent for us to talk about Hijri calendar as well while we are at it. Though Hijri calendar has nothing to do with the Seerah itself, but because this is such an important event that happened in Islam, it makes it very important for us to discuss it here as a side note, as something to remember. Now, in 17th year after Hijrah, during the tenure of the Khilafat of Hazrat Umar ibn al-Khattab, two significant incidents happened. One where there was a guy who came with a complaint saying that this second guy owes me money that he has to pay to me in Sha'ban, but he hasn't paid me in Sha'ban. He says it's the next year of Sha'ban that I owe you to pay. So Umar inquired and asked, like, what's the matter? So the guy who basically borrowed the money, he said, yes, I know I have borrowed the money, but I meant next Sha'ban, not the Sha'ban now in 3 months' time or 4 months' time. Now, during the same time or similar time period, one of the Sahaba, Abu Musa al-Ashari, he wrote a letter back to Umar bin Khattab, and he said, and Abu Musa was a governor at one of the places in the Islamic Empire then. And he said that a lot of times you'd ask us to complete a task by a month, let's say Ramadan or Rajab or Sha'ban or whatever. And we don't know whether you are talking about this particular month to be, this particular project to be completed in the month, in this year, or next year, in 2 years' time. Like, what is the time frame? A proper time frame. So this basically these were precursors for Umar, and Umar being a very intelligent person, he was like, okay, man, we really need to sit down and think about calendar system as an Islamic calendar. Now, up until now, remember this, that up until the Prophet's Hijrah, whenever we talked about the Arabs, we talked about Jahili Arab, right? I have used this term numerous times, Jahili Arab, Jahili culture, as an illiterate culture. Reason being that Arab did not have a civilization, they did not have a culture, they didn't have anything in proper. The only thing they knew was Shariat Ibrahimi. Even that they didn't follow. They did shirk, right? They had their own idols that they used to worship, but they did not have a civilization or a culture. So neither did they have any constitution. They did not have any proper rulers or anything like that. So they had nothing. They didn't know anything. But after the establishment of this Islamic empire, civilization came into being for Islam. A proper culture was set in, a proper way of Khilafah was set in. So these things came gradually as Islam spread out and as Islam started to begin to flourish. Now, Umar bin Khattab said, okay, we need to establish Islamic calendar now. Remember before this, we talked about Arabs using incidents to mark something. So, for example, the Prophet was born in which year? So that's called year of what? Remember way back, the first class, year of elephants. Very good. Who answered this question?
Me.
Always tell your name as well, okay? Now, year of elephants. So they would say year of elephants or year of falana, year of fala, year of fala. But they didn't say year one, year two, year three, year four. There wasn't any concept of year. So Umar bin Khattab said, now let's put an Islamic calendar because by this time, 17th after Hijri, Islamic Empire has already expanded all the way up to North Africa. Some parts of not they are very close to touching Europe right now, and they have almost a lot of land on the eastern borders as well. So Islamic Empire is not um, confined to Makkah, Medina, but it has gone all the way, the entire Middle East, the entire North African territory, and even expanded slightly towards Europe, which is like they've crossed Turkey, and Turkey is the border of European Union, right? So they are now close to Turkey. In fact, they are in Turkey, but they are in Istanbul now. So that the empire has spread out quite a bit. On the right, they have Iraq, Iran, everything in the Islamic Empire. So they started, okay, well, what's the suggestion? So one of the Sahaba said, let's follow the Roman calendar. This was immediately shut down. They said, no, 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 no. Why would we follow a Roman calendar? We are not going to follow a Roman calendar. Then few Sahaba said, why not we start with Prophet's death? Umar bin Khattab said, no, no, no. We can't start Islamic calendar from such a big grieving event. The Prophet's death was not a simple thing. For them, for those Sahaba, that was the year of grief for them. That was the real year of grief. Whenever they used to think about the Prophet's death, they just used to cry and cry and cry and cry. That's it. So they said, we cannot mark an Islamic calendar from the Prophet's death. Someone said, why not Prophet's birth? And they said, we can't do it with Prophet's birth because we don't know exact year. So it's difficult to count everything down. And that is when Hazrat Ali stood up and said, let us start the Islamic calendar from the year of Hijrah. Because after Hijrah, the tides turned. After Hijrah, Allah gave us Izzah, Allah gave us honor. Allah spread Islam after Hijrah. This is when exactly the Islam was like, Islam flourished immediately after Hijrah or started after Hijrah. So that should be the marking of the Islamic calendar. And everyone unanimously agreed that, okay, we will start from Hijrah. This is why when we count the dates, we count as AH, as in after Hijrah. So there is no zero in it, but rather the Islamic calendar starts from year 1, means the first year of Hijrah completed. Year 2 AH, 2 years after Hijrah, 3 AH. So right now it's 1441 AH, which means we are now living 1441 years after the Hijrah. Now, the year is established. What about the month? Where should we start the month from? Few Sahaba said Rabiul Awwal because the Prophet was born in Rabiul Awwal. Few said let's do Dhul Hijjah because it's the month of Hajj. Few said let's do Rajab because Rajab is again a very it's one of the sacred months in Islam. And this is where Hazrat Uthman Radiallahu anhu, who is also a third Khalifa, he said we should start the month from Muharram. Now, scholars have two opinions on it as to why he might have said Muharram. One's opinion is that the announcement of Hijrah actually came in Muharram. So if you guys still remember in the Goldfish memories that we that the second bay'ah of Aqaba was taken on the day of Hajj. So the things were done on Hajj when these 75 people from the Madinah came and they took the bay'ah and they said, now you have to come with us. And after that, Allah gave permission to emigrate for everyone except the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So the Sahaba started emigrating in Muharram. So Muharram should be the first month. Now, similarly, few other scholars report that there are citations which suggest that Usman may have suggested Muharram because in Hajj, when we have done Hajj, we are sort of reborn. So when we come back from Hajj, all our sins are forgiven. We are just like newborn babies, as in sinless. We don't have any sin on us. So Muharram marks the first month after Dhul Hijjah. That means that's the first month after the baby is born, you know. So why not start from Muharram? Allahu Alam, whether it's the first or the second or both, it doesn't even matter. But both make logical sense. And Muharram was chosen as the first month. Just as a reminder, today, depending on which masjid we are following, it's 6th or 7th Rabiul Awwal, 5th or 6th Rabiul Awwal, 1441 after Hijrah. Now, the periods can be divided into two distinct categories. One is the Makkan period, which lasted for approximately 13 years. And the second is the Madani period, which lasted for approximately 10 years. The number of hadiths that we have, or hadiths that we have for the Makkah era are less compared to the Madani era because one, we had less Muslims in Makki era, and two, when the Prophet goes into Madani, most of the people are Muslims there. So everyone is basically learning about Islam. They're always with the Prophet. So there are like thousands and thousands and thousands of ahadiths that are coming in the Madani era. Hence, the Seerah in Madani era is more not only confirmed, but a lot of detail is there in the Madani era because there are lots of Sahaba who have witnessed events. And a lot of these hadiths are mutawatir. That means they are in different books and they have been narrated by different Sahaba as well. So Madani era is more long in terms of detail and in terms of depth. Please mute your phone. Can you please mute your phone, whoever it is? Right. It's muted now. Okay. Now, the Madani era, or these 10 years, are further divided into three distinct periods. One, the first period lasted for about 5 years, which is removal of serious internal and external threats. In this time, the religion and Islam itself was being strengthened and it was being consolidated within Medina. from all the external and internal threats, and the Muslim Ummah was being consolidated. And this went up until Ghazwa Khandaq. In Ghazwa Badr, the Prophet himself made a dua, which was, and we will talk about it when Badr, we discuss Ghazwa Badr, that Ya Allah, help us, because if this group of Muslims is perished in this environment, then there will be no Islam after that. And Allah obviously helped.
Someone's muted you. We can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
Hello?
Right. Yeah, now can you hear me? Where
Yeah.
did you guys lose
Now
me?
I can.
Yeah.
Now, I did remove everyone from administration or admin. I just can't, I don't know how. Can someone mute me again? I'm just lost for it, really. Acha, where did you guys lose me? I'll just start from Era of Truce anyway. So, the Era of Truce lasted for 2.5 years, and this is the time when Islam flourished 6 to 8 folds. So, in the first era, Islam is not flourishing, but rather we are just strengthening and consolidating. But in this 2.5 years, it just spread out. It just spread out like wildfire, you know. And then the last 2 or 2.5 years was basically the final and the finality of the Islamic Empire or Islamic Republic until the death of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is just a brief overview of the Madini era itself. Hence, when we talk about Madini era, we'll see that in the first 5 years, when we discuss the first 5 years, we'll be talking about lots and lots of ghazwat and jung and expeditions. Now, the Sahaba in Madini era. Now, primarily in the initial times, the Muhajirun did not find Medina as a very, they did not like Medina as such, not because they found any hostility, but rather it was more to do with them being so far away from their own homes, their own place, their own beds. It's like when we are staying somewhere else, like if you stay in a hotel or somewhere, 2, 3, 4 days, you will enjoy the whole thing. After 8 or 10 days, it's in the best of environment, it's still going to bore you, and you would be like, "Oh, I really need to go back home and sleep on my bed, where even if the springs are prodding into your back, but you'd still like to go and just crash on your bed and say, "Oh, Allah tera shukar, I'm on my bed," right? So those were the feelings. And then again, Medina was a very luscious place compared to Makkah. Makkah was dry and barren, but Medina had date trees, palm trees, greenery. So because there was greenery, there were diseases there as well. So people started to get those diseases which they were not too used to, you know. So one of the waqia or incident is that Amma Aisha saw her father Abu Bakr and Bilal as well with him, and she asked, "What happened to you?" And both were in high fever, and they started moaning. They were like, "Oh my goodness, it's so high fever. It looks like that I might just die of fever." So Amma Aisha came back and told the whole thing to the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and the Prophet made a special dua. He said, "Oh Allah, make Medina beloved to us like we used to love Makkah or even more. Oh Allah, bless us in the measurements. Oh Allah, take away bad weather and diseases from us." After the dua, slowly and gradually, the love of Medina entered the hearts of all Muhajiruns. So much so that when the Prophet used to go towards Medina, he used to rush to Medina as soon as he would see the sight of Medina. You know, he would rush towards it, and Medina became capital of Islam. You know, so Medina has its own significance per se. Even now, when you go to Medina, I don't know if you guys have gone. Inshallah, when you guys are adult and you go to Makkah and Medina for Umrah and Hajj, everything. May Allah bless you all, your parents with Umrah and Hajj. You will see there is a different feeling in Medina. When you stay in Medina, your heart is soft. You feel, you know, there is there's a pleasant feeling I can't describe. I've been like we did Hajj Alhamdulillah a year ago. Before that we did Umrah. The feeling in Medina cannot be described. The amount of love that you have in for Medina is in every Muslim's heart, even if you have never seen Medina. The first time you would go into Medina, your heart will melt. You will see the change in your heart, you know. You'll see that, oh, you'll find that love everywhere in the environment. As soon as you enter Masjid al-Nabawi, you will feel like, oh, maybe the Prophet is just here, literally. So that love is in Medina as soon as you enter Medina. And this is because of the dua of the Prophet that Allah has entered love for Medina in every Muslim's heart, irrespective whether we are Muhajir, we are Ansar, we are not Muhajir Ansar now, isn't it? Anyone who becomes a Muslim tomorrow or today, he goes to Medina, he'll have that love in his heart. This is by the dua of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Anyway, the first hadith of Medina was narrated by Abdullah bin Salam. He was a Jewish rabbi, and he is the one who saw the Prophet ﷺ come in Quba. And he basically also was one of the people who went to the Prophet and saw him. And when he saw his face, and he narrates himself, um, so in Bukhari Sharif, he narrates it himself that when the Prophet arrived in Medina, sorry, not in Quba, in Medina, I went to see him and I immediately recognized through his features that he would never be a liar. The first things the Prophet ﷺ said, and this is the first hadith that I'm telling you about now. The first hadith was, O you people, extend the greeting of peace among yourselves, provide food to the needy, maintain the ties of kinship, observe prayer at night while people are asleep, and then you will peacefully enter into the garden of paradise. This is narrated in numerous ahadiths, in Ibn Majah, in Tirmidhi, and a lot of other books. Sorry, went into this. Now he continues to say, he will not enter paradise whose neighbor is not secure from his wrongful conduct. The Muslim is the one from whose tongue and hands the other Muslims are safe. Some also report that he also included this, that none of you believes truly till one likes for his brother that which he loves for himself. I'll talk about this in a minute. And then the Prophet continued, the believers in the mutual love are like human body, where when the eye is in pain, the entire body should feel the pain. When the head aches, all the body aches as well. And then the hadith goes on. It's a very long hadith, you know, but the gist, the summary of the hadith is the first.
You've been muted again.
It's muted.
This is really irritating. I don't know who ends up muting me. Where
It's muted again.
who is muting me? Like this is not funny at all. Really, this is quite irritating. I will make another group, guys, after this, and I'll add you all separately so that no one has any admin rights or anything whatsoever, not even user rights, because this really gives me it freaks me out because no one should be muting anyone. Anyway, where was I? Anyone remind me? What was the last thing I said? Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So where was I when this whole commotion took place?
You were
Uh,
explaining when the head hurts, everything hurts.
Yes, good.
Yeah.
So the first thing the Prophet ﷺ asked us to do when he entered Medina. So basically, this is now beginning of a new constitution of Islam. He says, spread the greetings of Salam everywhere, feed the people, maintain the ties of kinship, and observe prayer when everyone is asleep. Now, this is a very profound hadith, very, very profound. Reason being, a lot of times we would not say salam to anyone. When we go into masjid, we would just go in and just start our work. We just sit down, or we would say, "Hey, hi, good morning, good afternoon," even to the people we know who are Muslims. So a lot of times at work or at school or at college, anywhere where we are, we would say to the people who we know who are Muslims, we say, "Hey, hi, hey man, dude, what's happening?" Or brofist, or where is salam? So the first thing the Prophet said when he went into Medina was spread the greetings of salam. What we should learn from here is we should always spread salam, whether someone says walaikum salam or not, it doesn't even matter. The thing on us which is fard is to say salam to everyone. The second thing that comes is feed the people. Feed the people. Which people? Who are needy, who are poor, who are in need, irrespective of what we think. So when we go down to the high street, in Reading, most of us who live in Reading, if we see people sitting there, homeless or however they are, we should never judge people. We should never say, "Oh, he's a professional beggar. Oh, yeah, he's just he's just taking a time off, or why is he working? He looks perfectly fine from his health point of view." We are no one to judge anyone. Because I said this before as well, if Allah judges us before He starts giving us, we won't get anything in our lives because we might be, I don't know, maybe at the bottom. You know? So feed the people, irrespective. If we don't, we when you go to Asda's or Sainsbury's, remind your parents, if nothing else, just buy a £1 uh, tin of sweet peas or chickpeas and put it in the food bank basket. Nothing more, just a quid, just a quid or 50p tin and put it there. That's more than enough. You have done your bit. But always remember to do that. Be good to your relatives. In fact, the exact words are maintain the ties of kinship. A lot of times we would see our parents do this more, even including my parents at times. Oh yeah, we can't talk to them. Yeah, we can't talk to him because he did so bad to us. I'm not talking to him. So this is called qata ta'alluq. It means we have cut off our ties. The hadith is very clear. We cannot cut off our ties with any of our kins, any of our relatives. So in the worst of circumstances, we would still say salam and keep the ties together. The last thing that comes in it is pray at night when everyone is asleep. This is basically an indication towards tahajjud. If and when we do get time, do try to make an effort by waking up at night, do some nafil, and then sleep. And then there's one of the hadiths. As I said, it says, "None of you believes truly until he likes for his brother what he likes for himself." So a, a lot of time we would say, "Oh yeah, I'm buying this shirt for my friend or my cousin or whatever. Let me buy it from Primark, even though I buy my own shirts from John Lewis or Debenhams or anywhere, but because I'm buying this thing from him, I'll buy a cheap stuff, or something from there." This is actually not liked by the Prophet. What he says was, a true believer is going to give someone what he actually likes for himself. So if I like something for myself, let's say I'm going to give a present to someone, and the present is, let's say, a perfume. Now I like cool water or something like that, and I go and buy a £1 perfume from Poundland and just give that. that is wrong. That means I'm not a true believer. Had I been a true believer, I would have purchased, if not cool water, at least something similar. And that would have been a gift to the guy I would have liked it for, you know. So we need to, when we are giving something, we need to be mindful. We need to be mindful of our budgets. That's fine, but we need to be mindful of what we are giving. Will we like it for ourselves? So before giving it to someone, ask this question to yourself: would you like it if someone gave this to you? If you say yes from the bottom of your heart, then okay, that's fine. If the answer comes no, or if you start thinking, that means the answer is no. So this entire long hadith has lots and lots and lots of lessons for us, only if we are open to learning about it. Now, another important thing that happened in Medina was a thing called Muwakha. What the Prophet did was that he basically paired up the Muhajiruns with the Ansars, and this pairing up is called Muwakha. So the way he paired up everyone was so complete that they became like brothers. And until the revelation came for inheritance, they were so complete that they were actually inheriting as well from the Ansars. But anyway, so at least we know about 100 pairs, but they were more than that. A lot of scholars say they were like 300 to 400 pairs. So this pairing continued until the end of um, until Islam spread to the conquest of Makkah, and even after that until the death of Prophet. So the Muwakha continued. So the pairing used to continue. So for example, Abu Bakr was paired with someone in Ansar, Abdurrahman bin Auf with someone. All of these pairs were so complete in the characteristics. So for example, a businessman was paired with a businessman, an intelligent person was paired with an intelligent person, adventurous person was paired with an adventurous person. So the pairs were so complete that they had no difficulty getting along with each other. So this is called Muwakha, and this happened, and this is basically one of a very significant feature of the early Islamic Republic or empire, that all the Muslims got along with each other because the Prophet ﷺ had so much intellect himself that he knew that I have to pair everyone in the exact correct way. And being a prophet, he knew who to pair with whom. And he paired everyone himself where he was, himself, everyone. Now, one of the very nice waqia happened was Muhajirun came to the Prophet and they complained. Now, this complaint is so beautiful. They didn't say anything bad about the Ansar, but what they said was that these people have taken care of us so much so that we fear that they might take away all of our ajr, that we have basically been persecuted, we have left our homes, we are with nothing here. But they have done so good with us that we fear that they might take all of our ajr away from us. Then the Prophet ﷺ replied to them that no, as long as you do good with them and you make dua for them, you will get your own reward. And you will also see in the Quran, in last lesson I did give references, but every time the term Muhajirun is used, it is used before Ansars. So Allah has used Muhajirun and Ansar almost at every instance. Whenever we we have the term Muhajirun, we have the term Ansar. This is the level of Ansar. However, the Muhajiruns are above Ansar when it comes to the Ajr and their own levels, you know, from a taqwa and from uh, from a reward perspective. So Muhajiruns are always discussed before Ansars, even in the Quran. So obviously we know that Muhajiruns have a higher stature. Now, Muwakha, according to modern ulama, is a neglected sunnah. We see that a lot of people become Muslims, but we don't do any muwakha with them. We don't give them companionship. I don't say we bring them into our house or whatever, but at least we should pair them with people who are like-minded so that they can um, they can get along with them in a better way, and they can also learn about Islam through them, but in a like-minded way. So if you put someone who is very adventurous and you put him with me, he's going to run away, to be honest. I'm a very lazy person. I have no sense of adventure in my life or in myself or in my spirit. I'm better off with someone who can talk about news and intellect and science. But if you put me with someone who's adventurous, he's going to say, "Oh goodness me, you are going to bore me to death with him." So it's not going to get along, right? So when we grow up, when you guys grow up and you see these things happening, you have to bring this sunnah back to life by giving these recommendations. Let's pair him with someone who is alike with him or her, and do it like him with him and her with her. But this is a neglected sunnah which we should remember. Now we'll briefly touch on Medina and treaties of Medina. Now in Medina, we spoke earlier as well about the demographics. There were three um, specific group of people. One group was Muslims, which include Muhajirs and Ansars. The second group was polytheists, who are still non-Muslims. They will all become Muslims after a third or fourth Ghazwa, I think. And the third population was Jews, which was Amr bin Auf. There was a Qabila of Jews that was still there, and they used to live in full autonomy. Now, because Islamic Empire is now started to establish, so there will be some rules and regulations. And if anyone is not going to obey those rules, they will have to face punishment, or whatever the punishment is not to face rules, right? So we live in this country, so we have to follow the Constitution of United Kingdom. If we do something or say something which is against the Constitution, what happens? We could be taken to court and punished by the court for saying or doing something which is against the Constitution. So now that Islamic Republic is forming, there is a constitution which is forming as well. And anyone who goes against the constitution is punishable by the state now. The reason why we discuss this topic right now is in future, in the next 3 Ghazwat, major things are going to happen. And if we don't know this background, then we'll say, why did we do it? Why did Muslims do this thing? This seems to be a little bit tough, but we need to know what the context is. The treaty with the Muslims and the non-Muslims, not the Jews, but the Muslims and the non-Muslims was quite straightforward. All Muslims are ummah. We no Muslim should harm any other Muslim. We protect. Everyone is in the protection of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. The believers should be supported by each other. So basically, these were very straightforward clauses in the treaty that was with the Muslims. Similar treaty was done with non-Muslims as well, but obviously the Muslim part was not there, like non-Muslims are not part of the Ummah. So those parts were not there. However, with the Jews, there was a different type of treaty, which was the Jews of Bani Auf. This is the Qabila, this is the tribe that used to live there. They said that you are a community with the believers. You are responsible for your own expenditure. We are responsible for our expenditure. If attacked by a third party, each shall come to help each other. So if you are attacked, we will help you, and if we are attacked, you are going to help us. Each party shall hold counsel with each other, and mutual relations would be founded on the principles of righteousness. Sins are excluded. We know as we go into Seerah that a lot of times Muslims will do trade with the Jews. The famous waqia, the famous incident is Hazrat Usman purchased a well of water from the Jews and gifted it to the Muslims. Neither shall commit sins to the prejudice of other, means neither shall commit sins which is discriminatory of each other. The wronged party shall be aided. So anyone who is wronged by the other, the person who is wronged will be helped irrespectively. The Jews shall contribute to the cost of war as long as they are fighting alongside the believers. Medina shall remain sacred and inviolable for all that join this treaty. This is one of the most important bits. Should any disagreement arise between the signatories, the matter would go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his messenger to settle the dispute. All the signatories shall boycott the Quraysh and abstain from extending any support to them. Now, these three are very important. Each shall contribute to defending Medina in case of a foreign attack. The treaty will not hinder either party from seeking a lawful revenge. Now, remember, when we go further in details of the different ghazwa that happened, the Jews, the then Jews of those tribes broke this treaty on 3 different occasions, and they were punished in different ways. Hence, this treaty is very important to discuss because there was a constitution, and the constitution was broken in forthcoming weeks when we discuss that. But we need to remember this particular thing. And again, this is part of history. I do not endorse anything against anyone, any religion, any faith, any community. But because this is part of what has already happened, it is our job to describe what has happened and why this happened. So if someone tells you something in school or anywhere else, you know why something has happened. So you can also talk about it, that this is the reason the constitution was broken, hence the punishment ensued. Now, as we talked about it, Medina was the first Islamic republic and just eventually became the capital of the Islamic Empire and stayed as the capital of Islamic Empire for as long as we know, up until the third Khalifa. In the era of Hazrat Ali Raziyallahu Anhu, the capital had to be moved into Iraq to avoid a constitution, to avoid a conflict. But that is what happened. But anyway, Medina still remains a major part of Islamic history. And Medina and Makkah are the only 2 places that, according to the Prophet's hadith, will be saved from Dajjal when Dajjal comes. But that's a topic for another day again. Now, one of the things I would like to tell you is because we have entered into the new phase, which is the Hijri phase. Hijra has been done. A lot of things are going to happen, fast moving things. We will talk about precursors to Ghazwa Badr in next class. And then there are at least 7, 8 wars that we'll talk about. We'll talk about different expeditions, etc., etc. So it is quite important that you guys always revise, take out 10 minutes and revise the previous presentation before you come into the class. It will only take you 10 minutes to revise things, because otherwise, after 1 week, after so much schools and tuitions, it is a bit hard to remember everything, which I totally follow. Last but not the least, because we have completed Makkah era and we have gone into Madinah era, I'm thinking of doing a special retreat, not retreat, but sort of a get together for everyone, for all the students. And we can do this face to face on one of the Sundays, most likely. Refreshments, cakes, pastries, samosas, maybe if budget allows, maybe biryani as well. We'll see inshallah about that, so that everyone can meet each other and we can talk about what you have learned up until now, and also celebrate a milestone that we have completed the Makki era. So that is a huge milestone that we have already covered, and it is only befitting that now we sort of celebrate that in a small way by just getting together, having some refreshments and bringing questions out as to what you have learned, how is this benefiting yourselves, and then everyone gets an opportunity to say a few lines about what they have learned and what they found very interesting up until what they have learned in the last many classes. Is that anything that you guys would like to do? Especially considering lots of samosas, pakoras, biryani. Yeah.
Food.
Huh? I know at least one of them who will be very interested in biryani and samosa as well, but we can have cake as well, to be honest.
Thank you for teaching us.
Thank you for teaching us.
Oh, that's fine. So are you, so talk to your parents. Um, let them know to send a message on WhatsApp group or here on Skype if they are fine bringing you guys in. We'll decide the day and time later on, but the first thing is to get a consent from your parents. Would they be happy to bring you guys in for a face-to-face
Bring in
refreshment?
where?
In where?
Bring you where? Maybe somewhere, I don't know. We'll book a hall or something in Reading or Early. Most likely in Early, we'll book a hall somewhere there.
Okay.
ठीक है, तो ask your parents if they will be interested in bringing in. Inshallah, then we'll do that and have some.
Can we do it in the Aisha Masjid?
I will ask. We can do in Aisha Masjid, but because of winter time, everything is so close. All the namaz are so close, and they close the masjid at 7:30 nowadays or 7:45. So maybe we might be able to do it in the morning, maybe, 10, 11, 12, something like that. I don't know. But we can discuss the date, time, and venue anyway. But the first thing is the most important thing is for your parents to say yes, they are interested in bringing their children up. ठीक है? चलें, everyone, do revise before you come next week because we will be jumping into Ghazwa Badr and the precursors to Ghazwa Badr. This is a very emotional topic. It might take at least 2 to 3 classes to cover because it has a lot of Quran in it as well and a lot of context. So, and very emotional topic for me, to be honest. So, we need to give proper time and attention to it. So, hopefully, you guys will revise it and then come, inshallah. See you guys and speak with you all next Sunday. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Allah Hafiz. Take care.
Walaikum assalam.